There is nothing more immaculate, in my opinion, than the vibes that come from listening to an audiobook on like public transit or in a public place, and it's a spicy scene. So they're all just like going about their business, they're grocery shopping. And you're grocery shopping too, but more so than that, you're also listening to an incredibly profane scene. I just recommend it. It's a very good experience, and honestly, have a laugh. Try it out. Hi. Welcome back to my channel, Freak said lovingly. My name is Carly, and today we are doing a lovely presentation all about Booktok romance. Okay? I'm honestly enamored with like the science behind Booktok. We simply don't have the time to unpack it. I don't have the scientific skills to do it, quite frankly, and that's okay. I love women in STEM. I support women in STEM, but I am not a woman in STEM. I can barely do basic arithmetic, and that's okay. That's valid. Normalize not being able to do basic arithmetic. So today what we are going to be talking about is different tropes and like what that means. Okay? I love a good romance. I love a contemporary rom-com. I truly love like rom-com movies, but I also love rom-com books. They make me feel warm and fuzzy inside. I wouldn't say I am a hardcore romance reader for reasons that will become apparent as this video progresses. Also, online, there are people whose encyclopedic knowledge of every single aspect and little tiny nook and cranny and corner of the romance genre, it's honestly an unfathomable amount of knowledge. You know, like they are the Stephen Hawking of dark romance between cousins, and that is important. We need all types of knowledge to make the world go round, and I'm so happy for them. I'm a recreational hobbyist romance reader. When I'm in the mood for it, I read it and I love it. But I'm enamored by this, like the way that Booktok has completely changed how romance is marketed and read and communicated online, and I'm low-key obsessed. I have questions. I want to explore it as an outsider looking in. On the outside, always looking in. Will I ever be more than I've always been? I am the dear Evan Hansen of YouTube. Horrifying to think about. Such an insult. It hurts to be alive sometimes, honestly. So before we get into this, I want to do a couple of disclaimers. Mainly, I want to say love what you love. If I say something about a romance book that you love, well, I am going through different tropes and aspects of romance. I am not the arbiter of taste. Read whatever you love. The fact that people are reading it all, I think is good, you know? So that's that. And my credentials for making this, thank you so much for asking. What makes me feel like I can just kind of talk with reckless abandon for minutes on end, for dozens of minutes? Why me? Why me, not anyone else in the entire world? Doesn't other people in the world have more important things to say? It's a great question. Spotify paid me to do this. Nothing but peace and love to all my haters out there. This video is sponsored by Spotify. We're gonna get more into that later, but with your Spotify premium account, you can now get audiobooks. So as I go through different romance tropes and kind of break down and deep dive into the different aspects of modern day romance, I'm going to be offering a couple of examples of different books that I've read and enjoyed that fall into those tropes. And I would recommend to you get an audiobook on Spotify to read those books. There is nothing more immaculate, in my opinion, than the vibes that come from listening to an audiobook on like public transit or in a public place, and it's a spicy scene, but nobody knows that it is. So they're all just like going about their business, they're grocery shopping, you know? And you're grocery shopping too, but more so than that, you're also listening to an incredibly profane scene. I just recommend it. It's a very good experience, and honestly, have a laugh. Try it out. A couple of things that I feel like I need to unpack so you can understand what's going to happen in this video. Basically, when you are looking at Booktok, especially when it relates to romance, it has its own language, right? And I'm sure a lot of you have picked up on it from just like being online. And if you haven't, like, I'm really jealous of you. I feel as though 2024 is the year in which I go off the grid. I think that's really the best thing for my mental health at this point. That being said, being chronically online does have its positives, right? And one of those is that you can be fairly well versed in areas of the internet that you have not not traversed before. So some of these like specific terms and words that Booktok, maybe they haven't necessarily made up, but have definitely popularized. The one that I feel like is one of the most popular is spice. Not cumin or pepper, but like the levels of sexual content in the book. In a lot of romances, there's like a sliding scale, a Kinsey scale, if you will, of spice. That basically a book can fall anywhere on the scale of like, there is no sexual content to there is a lot of it. And people want to know what amount it is because some people love spice and some people don't. Right? Another part that we're going to be heavily focusing on is the idea of tropes and kind of like the tropification of the romance genre. That sounds like I think this is a bad thing. I don't honestly actually think it is. I don't know. I did study publishing in school. It was one of my like specializations. That being said, as I get older, the more I know that I don't know literally anything. It's awesome. It's like, how can a person know everything at 18 and nothing at 22? Right? Like when I was in school, I was like, I'm the most genius person in the entire world. I'm a prodigy. Why does nobody think I'm a prodigy? And now as I age every year, I'm like, I know nothing. But basically, tropes are these like identifiable terms that refer to like instances in books or aspects of the main characters or their relationships in romance, right? When people are promoting a book on Booktok specifically, because you don't have that much time to like give an in-depth review or a recap, you use these tropes to communicate like these are the things that happen in the book. These are like the types of characters or relationships you're going to see. So if you are looking to read types of books that have these tropes, you can read them. It's like basically watering down and making it incredibly economic and efficient to communicate what these books are about. This is good and bad, like literally most things in the world. You know what I mean? I think it's really easy to just like criticize Booktok because sometimes when social media is new, it feels like it's like the downfall of humanity. And like, I feel that too. I understand that. But in actuality, like it is a very effective way to make sure that if you are reading and you just want to read the kind of books that you want to read, you can read them. Do you know what I mean? Like, we only get so many hours on God's green earth. And sometimes you just want to spend those reading and you don't want to spend them finding out what books to read. Also, books are expensive. So you don't want to buy a bunch of books that you don't like. But if you're looking for specific tropes and you like specific things, then that's okay. You can just do that. Now, here's the thing. Books are expensive, but they're not expensive with Spotify. Oh my God. Amazing segue. I'm killing this right now. This video is brought to you by Spotify. I don't have to tell you why that's iconic. I feel like that is just kind of across the board amazing. I'm so excited to work with Spotify. That's bonkers. That's bananas. Okay? Now, I said before, audiobooks are a great way to read, not just romance, but any book that you're interested in reading. It's not only like a great way to revisit books that you've already read if you want to experience them in a new way, which is what I did for a couple of books that I mention in this video. Also, audiobooks are books and listening to audiobooks is reading. So if that's your jam, then that's absolutely how you should be reading books. I love listening to audiobooks because I can read these books while like doing errands, like I said before, grocery shopping or cleaning my house. And now in Canada, you can consume your audiobooks with a Spotify premium account. There's over 250,000 titles to choose from. Fathom that number. I can't. And with a Spotify premium account, like you just have access to them. It's absolutely insane. And this is all live right now in Canada with Spotify Premium if you are a master account holder. So I'm going to be sprinkling some recommendations throughout this videos as I unpack different tropes. I'm going to say if there's like a book recommendation I have that follows that trope of just like a romance book that I thoroughly enjoyed. I don't really feel like I can say what's good or bad, but I can say what I enjoyed, and I enjoyed all these books. I love listening to romance specifically with an audiobook because it's literally like watching a rom-com, but you're listening to a rom-com. One of the most recent books that I listened to on audiobook that I absolutely loved was Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Like, I'm not breaking new news to you saying that Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen is a good book. Like, it's famous for being good. But it truly is the original enemies to lovers romance, slow burn. I truly Loved every single second of this book. Like, it's a classic for a reason, baby girl. Like, it is so, so, so good. And I listened to this on audiobook and I really enjoyed it because sometimes with older books, the language can be dense for me, but the performance and just listening to somebody act out all of the dialogue and the kind of like internal thoughts made it so easy to understand, and I was engrossed start to finish. I can't believe that I'm trying to like influence you to read Pride and Prejudice, but it's amazing. If you're looking for just like an audiobook recommendation, get your Spotify premium account and listen to Pride and Prejudice, okay? It's just so immersive. The performances are great, and it's so accessible. Sometimes when you're trying to buy an audiobook, again, people look for tropes because they are afraid of purchasing a book that they don't actually like. But with Spotify Premium, you can try out as many audiobooks as you basically want to. Okay, that's wild. So if you want to enter your audiobook era, get a Spotify Premium account today. If you don't already, what are you doing? I've had my Spotify Premium account since the womb, basically. But with your Spotify Premium account, if you are the master account holder, you have audiobooks now. That's wild. Okay, and this is live in Canada right now. Let's just get into the rest of the video, but I just wanted to let you know, and I'll give you a couple more recs. Sorry for my British listeners. A couple more recs. That's how you sound to me. So I'm going to break down and react to some of the most popular tropes and also just tropes that I found really interesting. I scoured Booktok, Bookstagram, Book Instagram for the uninitiated. Also Reddit. I just looked up and tried to really figure out what are the tropes online that people are talking about right now. And I have divided them into 4 different sections. It's not a tier ranking. None of them are good or bad. It's just sections that I feel is appropriate. I am nothing if not organizing things in a way that makes sense basically only to my brain. So we have the classics. Then we have character specific. These are tropes that basically refer to either of the love interests or something like that. We have vocation/location specific. When I figured out those 2 words rhymed, oh, baby girl, it was best day of my life. These are tropes that basically either refer to the location of the love story or the vocation of either of the characters. And finally, the last section is just for a laugh. Come on, let's have a laugh. All right, some of these are a little kooky to me and I've got questions about them, but I'm not here to trope shame. So we're just gonna go through and talk about it. Something that I realized that is super interesting to me as a fan fiction reader. I'm not gonna say if that's past or present because sometimes boundaries are important between a creator and their audience. But I grew up reading fan fiction and we don't need to explore whether or not I read it now. It's not important. It's not really important. But when you're reading fan fiction on like Archive of Our Own or whatever, there are tags and those allow you to search the database for basically tropes of stories you want to read, whether it's like alternate universe or slow burn, specific relationships. And that's like what the tropes are, which is really wild to see. Like so many of the tropes are word for word fan fiction tropes, or tags. Do you know what I mean? I think like now we're seeing a lot of authors who have come into the space who are quite literally fan fiction authors who now are writing romance, and a lot of their books are formerly fan fiction titles that have been kind of reworked to be original characters. So it makes sense that like these tropes get more popular. Something that I feel like is really interesting is Ali Hazelwood, who wrote The Love Hypothesis, which we're going to get into later, which is a very fun romance read. That book is, if not based, inspired by Reylo, Star Wars, Rey and Kylo Ren fan fiction. And Ali Hazelwood gave an interview like a year ago, I want to say, where basically she said that her new book is the first book that she ever wrote from scratch. And she didn't know what to write because she had signed a 3-book deal. So what she did was talk to her agent, and her agent was like, I'd love to read an academic rivals to lovers book, and gave her a bunch of tropes, and she wrote the book around that. And some people, because people are kind of just like, I don't know if you know this about the internet, but people love to be outraged. Anything that they don't remotely agree with, violence against them. And people were very upset about this because it does create this, like, it can feel consumerist. But at the end of the day, like, it's basically a writing prompt. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're in a creative writing class, usually the teacher's like, here's the first sentence, write a story. But nobody's like, all of these short stories are it's the tropification of creative writing class. It's fine. I just thought it was interesting. Now let's get into the classics, okay? The first we have are enemies to lovers and friends to lovers. These are absolute classics. I said before, Pride and Prejudice, great example of an enemies to lovers. We also have Beach Read by Emily Henry. I'm an Emily Henry girl to the day I die. If Emily Henry has 500 fans, I have one of them. If she has one fan, I am one of them. If she has 0 fans, I'm in the ground. You know what I mean? Beach Read is basically about 2 rivals who hate each other. They're 2 authors and they live in cabins on Lake Michigan next to each other. One of them is a very serious literary fiction kind of curmudgeon, and the other writes romance, and they are mad at each other and they hate each other, but then they fall in love and kiss. I read this book like 2 years ago and I re-listened to it in audiobook format. Absolutely sings, had the time of my life. In a Canadian winter, I need a lovely romance to kind of cocoon me with comfort. That's exactly what this book did, and I enjoyed it a lot, okay? Another recommendation is, this is a super famous book. There's like a Lucy Hale movie about it, but The Hating Game. The Hating Game is a romance between 2 people at a workplace who are competing for the same promotion, and they hate each other, and then they kiss. Basically, these are books in which the love interests are enemies, they hate each other, but then they grow to love each other. There's oftentimes a lot of like witty banter and like basically it's somebody being like, you wore those shoes? And then they're like, yeah, and I hate you. And they're like, I hate you. They're like, why are you talking to me? It's like, I don't know, why are you talking to me? And then they like kiss. And I eat it up every time. You know what I mean? Slop that down onto my plate, put that gruel onto my Victorian orphan plate. I chow down every time. Friends to lovers is when the characters are friends and slowly throughout the course of their relationship, they fall in love. People like this because there's just like a lot of pining. The human race, all of us, somebody's got to study why pining is it's so important to us, but it is. It's this idea of being like, I'm secretly in love with you. I'm never going to say anything. I'm never going to say a thing about it, but I love you. The next trope is fake dating. This is a classic one. Like, without fake dating, I just don't think that the institution of fan fiction could survive. It's basically like there's some convoluted reason why the 2 main characters have to fake date. Does fake dating happen in real life? I'd be curious to find out. I want to know if you have fake dated, if you have fake dated somebody in your life, how and how? Because I feel like if somebody came up to me and they were like, we need to fake date. I need a fake date for my cousin's wedding because my cousin's getting married to my ex and I've got to show my ex that I've moved on. I'd be like, honestly, I'd be like, no. But honestly, I'd say yes for the plot. So actually, I'm eating my words because that sounds absolutely very fun. But basically, it's exactly what I just explained. 2 people, through some kind of convoluted reason, fake date. Whether it be like, it's a PR relationship and they're celebrities, or one of the characters needs to show off to their ex that they've moved on, you know? And while they fake date, they fall in love. And the whole thing is being like, what's real? What's not? They don't feel the same way I feel. And again, eat it up every time. An example of fake dating is the Spanish Love Deception, a great, lovely winter read for you all. Basically, the main character of this has lied to her family about having an American boyfriend. She has to travel to her sister's wedding with her entire family that she's lied to about having an American boyfriend. So she has to find an American boyfriend to complete her lie. And they fake date and they kiss and they fall in love. Again, every single time I eat it up. I am in a committed relationship, but there is like a part of me, because I think I've been fed just like rom-com narrative my whole life, where I'm like, that sounds pretty fun. In real life, it'd be a full disaster. If I told any of my friends I was fake dating someone, they'd be like, girl, why? Why would you do that? But for the plot, it's pretty funny. We also have second chance romance, which is basically where the 2 main characters either did like a one-night stand that didn't end well, or they were in a long-term relationship that ended. Basically, they're having a second chance at romance. Also, another classic is slow burn. This basically denotes that oftentimes it doesn't have the trope of insta-love, which is love at first sight. It basically means it's a very, very slow progression for them to fall in love. It takes a long time for the characters to realize it and mention it to each other. And again, it's the thing that as humans we love more than oxygen itself, yearning. Why? Somebody do a study on this. I would love to know. But basically, it's just pages and pages and pages of yearning. And I, say it with me, eat it up every time. I want my characters to be in emotional distress over communicating their emotions, because that's how I operate every single day. Thank God I'm in a long-term relationship. Nobody's been worse at flirting. I don't flirt. I act strange and off-putting to somebody and arrive at places they are also at and then don't talk to them. So actually, the riz I have, we have the one bed trope, also closely related to the forks proximity trope, basically where the two characters are like snowed in or whatever, and then they're like, there's one bed. I don't want you to sleep on the floor, so we'll just share a bed. Let's just share. What if we just share a bed? We just have to share the bed. And then when they share the bed, they kiss and fall in love. And then in the final two, we have our right person, wrong time, and miscommunications, pretty standard stuff. It's a full word already in the English dictionary. Basically, the characters miscommunicate the whole time, and that's what keeps them apart. This can take many different forms, but basically to some effect, it's like, I love you, but you don't even like me. And then the other character's like, I love you, but you don't like me because we've miscommunicated in some way. And then some character has to be like, you idiots, get it together. You both like each other. But it's that kind of thing of somehow a miscommunication, whether it be on a large scale in some kind of fantastical environment, I don't know, a scroll or something gets lost, or it's like overhearing some kind of thing that the love interest says about the other love interest, or, you know, one of the love interests is leaving the bed after a one-night stand, and they're going to get breakfast, but the other person thinks that they've left forever and feel very, very used. Some kind of miscommunication keeps the love interests apart when, in actuality, they feel the same way about each other. Right person at the wrong time is a heartbreaking trope. It's just a sad one. It's really sad to me, and it's kind of horrifying to think that in our human lives, you could meet so many people that are perfect for you, but the timing isn't right. Horrifying to think about. I don't like to unpack it, but it's basically where these people are perfect for each other, but something about the timing doesn't work. Now we have some characteristics and tropes that are very character specific. A lot of these have to refer to like the kind of relationship it is. I don't know if this is in the vocation or character section, but basically online, there's these kinds of images where it'll be like a book. Then there'll be like little text bubbles around it of all these different tropes. So it'll be a book that's called, I don't know, if I were to write a romance, it'd be called Love is a Battlefield by and then it'll be like enemies to lovers, slow burn. He owns a bookshop and she owns a cafe, and it's winter. And those images exist, okay? But basically, all that's to say is you can basically find any trope online that applies to any job you ever want your main characters to have. You know what I mean? He's a dragon slayer, and she makes artisanal ice cream for dogs. I feel like you could find that romance, you know? In the character-specific section, we have absolute classic, grumpy sunshine. This basically means that one of the characters in the main relationship is grumpy and the other is very, very positive, outgoing, a sunny person, if you will. And they like that because the grumpy person is nice to the sunshiny person. It's also kind of explained as like a black cat, golden retriever couple, where one of the characters is the human embodiment of a golden retriever and the other is the human embodiment of a black cat. And I do agree with this on a certain extent. I think that a lot of really good relationships have one person who's got like raw R2-D2 energy and the other's like C3PO, you know what I mean? Like somebody's like, we shouldn't be doing this is bad, and the other one's like, bah! And I'm obviously the second in my relationship. I'm just a maniac, and I just think that, you know, dynamics within relationships where you are different from your partner in minor ways make them very interesting to read. So that's why a lot of people live and die by either opposites attract or grumpy sunshine. I hate everyone but you is basically either one or both of the characters hate everyone in the world except for the person that they love. Is pretty self-explanatory and relatable. We also have Ice Queen, where basically the main character that is femme is mean, which I also love. As me, as I identify as mean. Like, no, I'm not actually mean, but people think I'm mean because I have a face that looks like I'd be mean. The amount of comments I get on my videos being like, you seem like a mean girl, and I'm like, how? What about this? I'm talking about romance books. I'm not a mean, whatever. But the main character is in some way like an icy woman. She's mean, which basically means she's not the sunshine in Grumpy Sunshine. She's got other things going on. She's got boundaries. She calls people out on their BS. And that's her whole thing. And then she falls in love, and somebody's got to melt the Ice Queen's exterior with love and kindness and patience. All right? We also have an absolute classic, he falls first. That's just a sentence. I feel like you could par it out. Take a guess right now what that means if you don't know. Is it that he falls in love first? Because that's literally what happens. Love this one. No notes there. But yeah, it's he falls in love with her before she falls in love with him. And we don't need to get into the psychology of why that's popular. It's just a good time, and we don't need to make it psychological. We also then have scars. This is where the main character either like has scars from some kind of accident, something's happening, or, you know, they might be self-harming or things like that, and they've been hiding them, and the other love interest sees them and is like, what happened? Who did this to you? What's going on? Just kind of a manifestation of vulnerability and trust. Humans are so cute, man. We just love each other, and we want to be vulnerable with each other. It's really sweet. Now moving on to vocation, location, specific tropes. Again, these are just tropes that relate to the location of the romance or the jobs of the people who are in the romance. These are some of the classic ones I'm going to be breaking down right now. But again, you could literally be like, she's a dog groomer in the Empire State Building, and he is the king of the sewer rats. And they're academic rivals to lovers. Like, it's literally word salad. You can pump in whatever you want, and you can just punch it in, and then it exists. And that's what the beauty of romance is. Starting off hot and strong, we have a sports romance. A different facet, like a smaller version of this, is hockey romance. A sports romance is where either both of the main characters or one of the main characters is like a professional or collegiate athlete in some way. Hockey romance is incredibly popular. There was that whole like Kraken drama online, but at the end of the day, it's basically somebody's an athlete, and that, you know, that's fun. Icebreaker is a really, really popular romance. I've been listening to that one right now and enjoying it thoroughly. It's basically a romance between a figure skater and a hockey player, and they're forced to share a rink, but it's fun. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna apologize. I'm Canadian. You know what I mean? Like, you know how some people are like, oh, the world's a stage? I'm like, well, the world's an ice rink, and the men and women are simply ice skaters. They're simply figure skaters or hockey players. Do you know what I mean? Enjoying it thoroughly. We have academic rivals, where the main characters are in some kind of academic setting. You can basically just have rivals where the characters are competing for something, which kind of falls in line with the enemies to lovers. But people also love an academic setting, a little dark academia moment. This is where they are competing for something academically and fall in love. Absolute classic. Kind of in this area, we also have the very popular now STEM romance, The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, another book that I read physically a year or two ago. And re-listening to is a joy. You get to re-experience something in like a new way. These books basically mean that both characters, or one of the characters, is in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. I did that off the top of my head, and I love that. I think it's actually just like a really cool society thing. More representation of women in STEM is good, and women in STEM also women can be in STEM and also get to kiss. And that's activism, I think. We have the classic small town romance. This can take like very many forms. You can have the classic small town romance where it's like, she's a big city lawyer who's commitment phobic and doesn't know how to love. But then she goes to this small town with a hot chocolate competition, and the man is a lumberjack who's been running his grandmother's pancake farm, and she falls in love with him and learns that the big city life isn't all it's cracked up to be, and she doesn't need the rat race, she needs love. But like a very classic traditional romance. You now get the alternative of that, of basically like people falling in love in a like anti-capitalist way in a small town. Very fun trope. I love it, like a quirky small town with lots of kooky cast of characters. You know, I love it every time. Maybe I should live in a small town. Maybe I should move to a small town and fall in love with a cow trainer. He trains the cows to jump over high jumps, and the sheep skateboard. Sounds fun to me. We also have a workplace romance. In the context of real life, maybe maybe not good, maybe problematic, but in the context of a book, that you fall in love in the workplace, baby. Very fun. We have romantasy. This is a massive genre. This is basically romance fantasy. A Court of Thorns and Roses is like the most popular romance fantasy book out there, I feel like, right now. People love this. It's super fun. You know, we got fairies, you've got mythical creatures, you've got a prophecy, you've got battles. It's basically like a traditional fantasy book, but they get to kiss. So like, that's a real improvement in my books. And now I've included, just for fun, just for a laugh, the tropes that I found when researching this that I've got questions about. No trope shaming here. I'm not here to yuck your yum. Whatever tickles your fancy, whatever is your jam, I love that for you. These are just ones that to me either gave me a laugh or I'm like confused by. The first one is knife to throat. Like, what's going on here? I'm assuming after reflection, like it's in a fantastical world, or like maybe it's like an assassin situation where one of the characters holds the knife to the throat of the other character, and it's kind of like it's horny and spicy as well as being scary. But I didn't make that connection at first, so I was just like, it's an academic rivals to lovers, but she holds a knife to his throat. You need to go to jail, babe. You can't, that's assault. Then we had one that I found that just says bad boy golfer, which is an oxymoron. You can be a bad boy and you can be a golfer, but the two combined I've got questions about, because golfers wear those little polo shirts, and it feels like the second you put on that little polo shirt, you've undone any bad boy energy that's been built up. The second I see a man in a visor, I'm no longer like, that's a bad boy, you know? We also have touch her and die. This is just in quotations. It's a thing that, generally speaking, the mask love interest says about the femme love interest. A lot of these romances deal with like those kinds of gender dynamics. Somebody will be, you know, nasty to her, and he'll go touch her and die. And again, just the romances I read, the stakes are a lot lower. So when I imagine that in the context, I'm like, you need to chill. If I was with someone and they went touch her and die, I'd go, oh my God, I'm good. Like, I've got it under control. And then we also have an incredibly popular trope where he says, she's mine. She's my wife, but she's property in the way she's also my couch. And I'm just jesting. I mean, obviously, you don't always have to like read romances for appropriate dynamics. It's just funny seeing it out of context, being like, oh my God, he said I belong to him. I love it. That's everything. Those are some of my favorite tropes that I've explored. I hope you have enjoyed this journey today. Thank you so much to Spotify for sponsoring this video. Again, there is over 250,000 titles to choose from. If you are a premium account holder and you are like the master account holder, go and browse all the different audiobooks and read some of the recommendations I've given you here, or explore. There's so many different ones to choose from. Truly amazing. This is all live right now. Go do it. Other than that, take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Bye.